Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Sol. I got Josh with me. Today, we're going over four. That's right, I say four episodes of The Bad Batch, episode 5, 6, 7, and 8. We do apologize. Our schedules did not line up at all these past few weeks.
No.
Like, literally, when I was free, he wasn't. When he was free, I wasn't. It did not work.
Yeah.
But we did watch all the episodes
hmm
in time.
Yep.
Just before we get into that, Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Obviously, there's a different background here. I'm in a different state right now because certain family things have happened. So I am here, all good. But that's the reason you're seeing me in a different location, for positive reasons. But that's another reason why scheduling conflicts have happened. So,
Yes, definitely.
but I'm doing very very well.
In episode 5, we get the Bad Batch together again. They travel to Pabu and Echo arrives, so yay, Echo. Um, and we have a funny line from Crosshair because Echo comes in, immediately hugs Omega, but Crosshair's like, "What? No hug for me?"
Right.
Which I just love that he's starting with the banter there. Hunter, Wrecker, Echo, Crosshair, and Omega go to a facility owned by the Empire to bypass the encryption on Nalisay's pad to get info for Rex, and we have a giant snow beast attack. Hunter still doesn't trust Crosshair, but Wrecker does because Omega does, and Hunter and Wrecker fight. They ultimately work it out, defeat the snow beast, and all is good with the Bad Batch. So, thoughts on this episode?
I was like, oh, Echo's back. And then he plugs something in and is like, I'm waiting for the data. And we're like, okay, cool. Thank you, Echo. Like I was hoping for a little bit more from Echo,
Yeah.
on that. But I mean, this episode is all about making amends between Crosshair
Mm-hmm.
and Hunter. And if Hunter's good with it, Wrecker's good with it, kind of a thing. But basically, these are the showing that we have two chiefs in the Bad Batch and always have been since episode one. We realized that they were kind of always butting heads, kind of like Leonardo and Raphael in the Ninja Turtles. Like they always butt heads, but at the end of the day, they're brothers. And so they always will, they always have a soft spot for each other. But even though they might disagree. And Omega is the through line through that. She's the one that kind of brings everything together because she understands just how the psychology kind of works at this point,
Yeah.
right? Because she's not a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed little girl anymore in
Yeah.
a sense for that, as far as the mentality of it. That standpoint, it was fine, but the fact that it just had to go to some random snow planet and then they just threw a worm in there, it just you had to put some action in the fact that they were having
Yeah.
couples therapy. This episode was fine for the fact that we still progressed the bending of fences that
Yeah.
happened for all these seasons.
In the previous episode, Hunter and Wrecker both look like, I don't trust this man. But I love how immediately Wrecker's like, Omega trust him?
Right.
I trust him. Like, Wrecker's like literally like, I'm good.
The beginning of the episode, Omega's like, you have to talk to him, and Crosshair's like, no. And they're like, you're gonna have to. And then they finally, because of the big giant worm, and which another Dune reference, pretty much. Oh, this thing with vibration,
But in snow.
but it's snow. It was just kind of funny. I was like, oh, this little bitty thing that's stuck in the ground is either detracts or like keeps the worm away or attracts a worm, which is the opposite of Dune. But I just thought, like, wow, another little Dune nugget. This was all about Crosshair and Hunter mending their fences, in which we see that they're good, but then other clones aren't going into the rest of these episodes.
And one thing that I found really sweet is that they kept Crosshair's armor. We couldn't throw it away. We don't have an episode or conversation at all in the Bad Batch, but there was probably a conversation at one moment of like, we need to get rid of this, and none of them could.
There's still that love for each other and what all they went through prior to, because all we had was like a few episodes in the Clone Wars, so we really didn't see them
Mm-hmm.
from the start as far as them as a team. So you really didn't see the bond that they had. That's all they needed. You don't have to go all the way back to like episode one, the Bad Batch. Here they are
Mm-hmm.
getting born. Like we don't need that. They've already kind of established it in the Clone Wars that these guys are awesome and they're badass, but they're better together as a group. Wow, this is like Ninja Turtles all over. Like go back and watch the OG 1990 TMNT. They literally have that conversation. It's like individually they're great, but together they're untouchable. and that's kind of what we see with the Bad Batch.
Going into episode 6 and 7, we're gonna lump these two together because it is a two-part story arc. We got both these episodes together in the same week. We start with Rex being a bodyguard for Senator Singh as he meets with Senator Chuchi, so we get these characters back. Their meeting place gets attacked by who I'm dubbing Assassin Number 1, who turns out to be a clone. Rex takes Assassin Number 1 as prisoner to his base camp where they find a capsule in his mouth and his identifying number erased.
I want more about Chuchi. She just
Me
seems
too.
such a great character, and we really don't get enough, but it's I don't know. It's like pistachios. You can't have more than one. Like once you have one, once you get that taste, or what some food. Like once you have one, you're like, I want more of that. But you don't want too much of it because too much of a good thing's a bad thing, right? Did I get that saying right? No, I've always liked Chuchi. Seeing anybody with a monocle, I never trust. In cinema, has anyone with a monocle ever been trustworthy? And I've seen some background stuff like, oh yeah, Chuchi is a bad guy, and I'm like, I mean not Chuchi, but Singh is a bad guy, and I'm like, no, this is literally the start of the rebellion. Like, but these meetings between Chuchi and Singh are the start of the rebellion because it's the last season of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
But they need to, and we've established Chuchi being awesome, but I just want more Chuchi on that. But this was a really cool of establishing. The one thing is like, where was Echo in all this? Didn't he go off with Rex? Like that's did I miss something somewhere?
Maybe this was like the beginning of this was when Echo was still with the Bad Batch on the Snow Planet.
True.
Or who knows? Echo's kind of going back and forth between Rex and them, so and maybe he's on his own mission.
And then I thought that the clone assassin was Crosshair for a millisecond. When I started, I was like, oh, because it kind of looks like Crosshair's armor, but it's not because it's that all black with the way the circular eyes are on the helmet. I was like, why is Crosshair? Because again, it's just Rex walking. That's the first thing that we see is Rex walking with Singh. So we're like, oh, okay. We get Rex, which I'm like, yeah, we get Rex. We get an episode with Rex. And then they showed Assassin zoom in with a sniper. So I'm like, and it kind of looks like Crosshair. I'm like, oh, so is this a flashback? And then I realized, wait a minute, that armor looks a little bit different. Yeah. We're still in the same storyline here. But it was mainly of establishing Rex's team and what he has now.
I never thought it was Crosshair, but I can see why. Thinking about like if it was a flashback, what armor would he have been wearing? And we find a little bit more later on in this episode why it would be a possibility that he would be one of these assassins. Empire then sends who I'm dubbing Assassin Number 2 to kill Assassin Number 1. We also find out that the target for Assassin Number 1 was not just Senator Singh, but also Omega. Rex then calls for the Bad Batch to join him and his crew on his base, and we get a funny Wrecker line. When they arrive, Rex's crew does not seem pleased to see them, mainly not pleased to see Crosshair, and Wrecker says, they don't look happy to see us, just like old times.
You're right. Right.
Also, Echo gives Omega an energy crossbow before he leaves.
So the Crosshair thing, I thought, at first I was like, it makes sense, but then again, Crosshair never gave a full answer on the assassin program. He never did. He basically they're like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not part of it. I'm not there. And he's like, what do you know about it? He goes, I was tested, but just like before, I was defunct. But it feels like he's holding something back. He knows more than what he's telling. And it's either one of two things. Number one, because he just wasn't good enough, and that's always been a big thing with him, even with the handshaking. That's the thing with him. And we find out in this last episode where Omega's trying to be the through line and be the compassionate one,
the healer,
basically, of trying to keep his mentals like in the same thing. Or he knows more than what he's telling, but for some reason we don't know. That's what's intriguing me right now. Is I think Crosshair has a little bit more to say because the Bad Batch is going to trust Crosshair, even though he kind of did them wrong at the beginning of the series. But they're the Bad Batch, like I said. Like they're always. It's going to be easy to forgive than still hate someone between those guys. I understand why the other clones are like that. They're trying to get the assassin to like understand like here's what we're doing. The cool layer of the Empire is because the Emperor doesn't give a crap as long as his mission gets completed, and that's why he's always kind of secretive. So Hemlock thinks that he has a full force Empire when he's still not, and he's trying to hide the fact that he does. Whereas the assassin is part of this other program, and that person probably is saying one thing. Now, did it get back to Hemlock? Probably,
Yeah.
but that's the kind of going back to Rogue One and why I like that movie is because you got the political BS from the Empire of people just trying to gain power when they think they have it and then they don't. And that's just to kind of answer your question on that is because Hemlock doesn't really have the full fledged Empire. He just thinks he does, and that's what
Yeah.
always does. Keep them close, but not too far away.
When we spoke about this too, he said that in that episode, but both of us were like, but wait, he's trying to keep it secretive from Palpatine. So does he really have the full force of the Empire if he's not letting Papa Palps know?
No.
But going on, we also get an explanation from Crosshair about the assassin clones, which you referenced a little bit. There are a group of clones on Tantus that are loyal to the Empire and part of the secret program run by Hemlock. Their identities are erased and they undergo conditioning, was the word that they used. You that make it through come out different. The reason Crosshair knows about them is because they tried to make Crosshair into one of them. Do you think we'll ever get a flashback to the horrors Crosshair experienced? Maybe see how he got his hand tremor that's been affecting his shot lately.
I think so. We need to, because that's why. That's another reason why I think it's just a big PTSD thing. So yeah, PTSD is real, and I think that's what Crosshair is going through. That's a good
Yeah.
thought on that. So I hope we do, but I think that they're going to tread lightly with it, not to trigger something with a viewer. They might. I don't think they're going to put a disclaimer like a for that, but I think we're going to have that because they're soldiers at the end of the day, and they're all just trained to. This is our mission. This is what we're supposed to do. These are our orders, and we're
Yeah.
supposed to do this. And once you start going back of actually having your own thoughts and free will and be like, wait a minute, and you're questioning orders, but you still want, and then next thing you know, your mind is not so orders that they finally are able to like settle down and think. And once you actually like take a deep breath and then your mind starts to wander, you get some PTSD, hand shaking stuff, all that suppressed stuff is coming back, which this is why I liked the hand trembling and what we got with when Crosshair was saying that. But
Yeah.
it could be the other way around, like I was saying before. Crosshair just might have some underlying things that he doesn't want to say because he has a trick up his sleeve or something. But I think it's
I don't
I think
think
it's
it's
the
a
former. I think
I
it's
don't think it's a trick up his sleeve. I think it's a prideful thing. Not I don't even think of him just not being the best. I think it's more of him not wanting to show his weakness. He went through this, he had a traumatic experience, and he doesn't want to speak about that traumatic experience because if he does, then he'll come across as weak.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that he fears the most. I think it's more of that. I would hate for it to be a trick up his sleeve after everything that they've done with him so far this season. Assassin number 2 was easily able to track where Rex's base camp is due to a tracker on Assassin number 1 and infiltrates the base. He has Omega in his sights to shoot down, and he doesn't. The orders are to bring her in alive, but I don't know if this assassin would follow those specific orders. Assassin number 2 kills Assassin number 1, and when parts of the base camp collapses, it falls on Assassin number 2, leading you to think for a second that he died. He didn't. We also see reinforcements flying to the base camp planet, and you're thinking this is going to be difficult for the Bad Batch and friends. Is he someone that would have killed Omega even if his orders are to bring her in alive?
Unless he got different orders. I don't think he had these assassins have shown they have no, there's you cannot manipulate them. I forget the experimental stuff that's actually happened to humanity to where you basically mind warp them to this. We've seen it in many movies, stuff like that, to where they it's like the CIA, it's like CIA type stuff, where they would here's your orders, they know nothing else, until you say like Bucky Barnes or like Jason Bourne or something like that, to where you say a certain phrase and then they get triggered and snap back to it. So I think he knew that he wasn't supposed to kill her. Now saying the right word to him, he would have shot her. Maybe Hemlock does have some things because he had it. I think his order initially was I'm going to kill her. And then he saw her and they're like, no, don't kill her. But he had to at least report back to say that he found her.
I think Hemlock wants her alive. I think his orders are to bring her in alive. Just from when we'll talk about the second episode of this two-part, he shoots down the shuttle that she's in, which could be very dangerous for her, and like the reinforcements, Wolf gets really pissed off at him because he goes, our orders are to bring her in alive. It makes me think more on the side of maybe he doesn't care if as long as he gets to like kill Crosshair or something. Like maybe that's where he left there's a little part in him that is not the always follow orders. We open up to episode 7 with Assassin number 2 being fine and Rex having a backup plan with a ship that doesn't have hyperdrive but can be used to contact Echo, who had left in episode 6 after dropping off the Bad Batch at the base camp. We also see that Assassin number 2 and the reinforcements led by Wolf don't really get along. Assassin number 2 ends up following Bad Batch and friends instead of following Wolf's orders, and we see Crosshair continue to have trouble with his aim when he's shooting at Assassin number 2. Bad Batch and friends escape on the backup aircraft, but as I said, Assassin number 2 shoots and Wolf is pissed because the orders are to bring in Omega alive. Is killing Crosshair more important to him than bringing Omega in alive?
This all goes back to the program and Crosshair being involved with it, because you could just tell with them just shooting at each other at that like elevator looking shaft, and then but you can just tell Crosshair's lost a step. He couldn't hit him, and then when they fought in over the waterfall, he was dead to rights. If it wasn't for the rest of the clones coming out of nowhere, which I didn't really get that, because where the other clones were compared to where Crosshair was, and they just showed up out of nowhere, that was just a little nugget I didn't care for. The mission at that point, just because they're so intertwined, and that's why I'm with you on, I want to see that backstory of this program, because there has to be something. Either Crosshair was the best, talked down to all of them, and then Crosshair either got nicked or, from Rocky 4, like he does bleed. Like something happened with Crosshair to show some vulnerability and he got mentally effed up. He was still looked at as the best one, and these guys are very competitive. So that's probably why he was, restraining Gorge, because all he cared about was like he knew Crosshair was there, so I'm going to shoot that down or something like that, just to piss off Crosshair. Meanwhile, I don't think Wolf knows about that program, and he just knows about this assassin. And so when Assassin goes off script, he's like, "What the crap are you doing? I told you an order." He doesn't know about.
Yeah.
I don't think Wolf knows about the program.
No, I don't think Wolf knows about the program either.
Which I think leads to Rebels, Rex, and Wolf.
We get a cute moment between Crosshair and Omega. Crosshair is being overprotective, and Omega tells him, "You're as bad as Hunter." And he responds with, "Oh, I'm much worse." Seeing them together is what makes Rex's men start to trust Crosshair a little more, and Crosshair was asked what changed him. He answers, "Loyalty meant something to me, but with the Empire, it didn't go both ways. I realized how disposable I was."
This season between him and Omega is just so precious, amazing, however you want to put it, because
Yes.
it's making me feel all fuzzy, just like he doesn't like it, but she's bringing out some affection in him. Like he actually cares about her opinion, and he wants to grow and be better. Thinking like 3 Man and Omega, but no, this is much more like Full House, and
Yes.
just put all 3 daughters into one, and that's Omega. And that's just kind of how I get with that. Obviously, there's a little more layers with Crosshair coming out and being more affectionate. I just am really liking, if you want to put in Ninja Turtles, obviously Hunter's Leonardo, Raphael is Crosshair, and Wrecker is Michelangelo. Tech is Donatello. I mean, that's well, he's supposed to be, but you put Tech and Echo together, that's Donatello. Welcome for our reviews. I reference a bunch of other stuff to make you realize where all they're pulling from.
Bad Batch and friends, as I've been calling them. They end up fighting the reinforcements, and Crosshair possibly gets his shot back. Not really, because we'll talk about it in the next episode. Shoots down the shuttle by shooting the pilot like dead on, and I was like, okay, Crosshair, you got your groove back a little bit. He got his groove back for a very short moment in time. Assassin number 2 shoots down one of Rex's men named Namek, and Crosshair decides that he is going to draw his fire so everyone else can get to the rendezvous point, which Omega is not happy about, but Crosshair says, too bad. Then we have a Black Panther style fight by the waterfall between Crosshair and Assassin number 2, where one of Rex's men stuns Assassin number 2 when Crosshair is being choked underwater, leading to Assassin number 2 falling down the waterfall.
I like the fight scene because it shows that that Crosshair he's lost his step. It was very cinematic.
Yes, it was.
It was really cool. The way it was shot. Like I said, the Deus Ex Machina. If that's a little TV movie reference, but it's basically right at the end. The rest of the clone troopers show up out of nowhere and start shooting at the assassin.
I do like that the one that shoots him down is the one that was the most distrusting of Crosshair.
Right.
At the beginning of the first episode of this 2-episode arc, Crosshair's underwater, Homeboy's about to die. Nope. The guy's taken care of.
No. In Star Wars, as you know, you can get cut in half, you can get stabbed, you can fall off a waterfall. Anything you can think of that would typically kill somebody in cinema or in life. No.
The fight was very cinematic, and
awesome.
I definitely was just like, wow, this looks super cool.
Mm-hmm.
This is also reminding me of Black Panther.
Yeah.
The reinforcements team, led by Wolf, catches up to the rendezvous point, and Rex informs Wolf on what the Empire is doing to the clones and speaks to his better nature. As your brother, I'm asking you to do the right thing. And Wolf lets them go. Assassin number 2 survived the waterfall as he crawled out of the water. We also get a scene between Rex and Hunter where Rex says, I thought that the end of the war was the end to losing more of our brothers, and Hunter replies that the Empire is too strong. Rex reminds Hunter that he is also fighting the Empire because he wants to keep Omega safe, and to do so he has to find out why she is so important to them.
I thought these 2 episodes were great. Spoiler alert, people who watch Rebels, like I alluded to earlier, we know that Wolf realizes at this point in time, he doesn't know all this crap that the Empire is, super, super evil. He was just like, oh, if you're telling me this and all the stuff that we went through, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but also go research it myself. That's kind of, I think that's what went through Wolf's mind with that. And then his other troopers are like, really? And he was like, yeah. Figure out about the M count blood stuff after this episode we just saw, which was episode 8. But we thought that the first 7 episodes are going to be them doing this and not meeting up with each other, and we literally got the next episode. So maybe after this 8th episode, so episode 9 might be it. But I'm thinking 12, because then it's really going to be 12, 13, 14, 15. We're really going to get into it. So because I think 10 and 11 is going to be a bunch of other character development stuff, but not the M count prop.
And we know about Wolf changing over, but the other clones, do you think they will also go against the Empire eventually?
Some of them. I think pretty much all of them are, based on what we get with A New Hope. At that point, now obviously we're a little bit further in the past, but and we know that at the beginning of the Bad Batch that they cost too much to keep cloning. So this is it. Yeah. This is the only batch we have of clones. For other than just Palpatine clones and Gideon clones, I think they'll eventually will. Will we have a big battle on episode 15? The Rebels and Obi-Wan, they were still clones that existed, so we're not going to have a total annihilation. But I think it's going to get to the point where all clones that are going to basically realize they're a part of something they don't agree with, and they finally get free will. At the end of it, I'm hoping at the end of the season we kind of get that. And then we can go into us, because they make the final season for a reason. And this is basically the end of the clone story until they come up with something else, because they like to milk it for money. But I'm pretty sure that's, to answer your question, they're probably all going to take down Hemlock, but at what cost? In the Rebels, when they showed that they weren't just the only 2, there was other ones with Rex at the time. I think there was 4 or 5 in Rebels show. And obviously we saw, they're still they're all not all together, all the clones, or at least most of the clones going together. We might have a clone battle at the end of it.
And finally, we get to episode 8. Omega is feeling guilty and blames herself for Rex's men that didn't make it in the last 2 episodes. And you see Crosshair being there for her. In the previous seasons, you would say her strongest relationship was with Hunter, but this season it's definitely Crosshair.
You get to see the sensitive side coming out. My favorite part was about the scenes between Crosshair and Omega. and that
Yeah.
development between how much he's really come out of his shell, even though he's still frustrated as hell. I mean, the other part with Hunter and Wrecker was fun. This episode was really true. What stuck out to me as far as storytelling was the relationship that we keep seeing brooding and
Yeah.
between those two.
Crosshair season 1, season 2, some of my favorite parts of those 2 seasons are with Crosshair, even though he's a bad guy.
Mhm.
And now him being a good guy, he's still my favorite part of this show. He's
Yeah, one of
just
my favorite
standing
episodes
out.
when Crosshair infiltrated that one base and was like, the
Mhm.
spiral staircase and stuff, and how he was able to like shoot around. That was just some really cool. That was some of the best action animation scenes in Star
Yeah.
Wars. Was that base episode?
Fee Genoa, played by Wanda Sykes, who Josh and I usually just call her Wanda
Wanda
Sykes. uh, contacts the Bad Batch and says she has been asking around about this M count thing,
Mhm.
and that word is certain Class 1 bounty hunters have been retrieving M count targets for the Empire. The Bad Batch decide to track down Fennec Shand to see if she has any knowledge on what M count is. Hunter makes a decision that him and Wrecker will find Fennec and that Omega and Crosshair will stay on Pabu. And before they leave, Hunter tells Omega to see if she can convince Crosshair to get his hand checked out and that ignoring it won't make the problem go away. His shot was not fixed. He still has the hand tremors.
He still is with Crosshair, but he still doesn't trust him at the same time. So that's why but he knows Omega does, and is keeping Omega safe at the same time. Right, because he still just has this big thing of like he doesn't want to put her, because like the last time they went through this whole big battle, they know on this island that Omega is safe, and keep Crosshair there, because him and Hunter and Wrecker, who we like 5-6 months, it's just been them two, so they've been doing missions the whole time, and so Hunter knows, hey, it's going to keep her safe, it's going to keep Crosshair there, which Omega has a relationship with, and me and Wrecker have been doing stuff together and just basically have a a good duo situation going. So I'm thinking that's maybe where his plan came into place, where it keeps Omega safe, it keeps, and just him and Wrecker have had a good chemistry going for these 5 months, because really and truly they haven't done anything with Crosshair for years at this point.
Yeah, it's more of keeping Omega safe, but I think too he sees Crosshair's tremor. He can tell that his brother is not okay.
I keep forgetting that he does in the snow episode with the worm. He notices the tremor.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I totally forgot about that.
And he keeps seeing it. Yeah. Hunter and Wrecker find Fennec Shand, and Fennec reveals she hasn't done an M count job before, but she may know someone who has, and says she'll take them to that person if Hunter and Wrecker help her with a bounty. The target is Siler Saris, the slayer of Ordo Eris, who took out a couple of top bosses for the Haxion brood and escaped with the cachet of credits that other hunters who have gone after him never came back. All of those words did not mean anything to me until I watched a background thing. I'm like, oh, this has to do with the video games, which I'm not a gamer. I didn't get that reference. Who do you think is the person she knows who might know about the M count? And do you think it was wise of Hunter to decide to work with Fennec Shand?
This is where Gideon comes into play. If you think about in The Mandalorian, she's on a mission to go after them. And Gideon knows that he has the child. Just because I'm on prediction from our first episode of the review to be right that we're going to get Gideon in this, because he cares about M count and all the other stuff, because he wants to eventually, obviously, clone himself in The Mandalorian. But the first time we see Fennec Shand is because she's an assassin going after the Mandalorian who has the baby. She obviously has a relationship with Gideon, leaves her for dead. Boba Fett finds her, blah, 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 blah. We already know that if you follow all the other multiple shows. Boba Fett / Mandalorian season 1.0 or 1.2, whatever you want to call it. That's no here nor there. So I think Gideon is the one that she is my hope. Because I don't nothing off the top of my head.
You just want to be right.
I just want to be right. Yeah, I just want to be right. And then as far as the other words, as far as like them going to this planet, there's a guy that does a video that kind of makes fun of Star Wars. And that's a guy, Zaku, and I just started chuckling to myself. He would just be like, go to Zendaya, find Tom Holland. Like, it's literally like what it was. It was like, go to Chumbawamba, find Tub Thumping. Like, that's what it felt like when I was hearing it. And I was like, gosh, dang it. Internet did it again. But that's exactly what I felt like.
Back on Pabu, Crosshair gets his hand checked by the droid AZ, who thinks his tremor might be more mental than anything physically wrong with him. When he presses Crosshair about what kind of experiments have been done on him, Crosshair storms off. I know I asked earlier if we'll see the horrors Crosshair's been through, which you hope so. I also hope so. How do you feel it's being handled in the show so far? Because getting a little bit here and there.
Yeah, the little nuggets always want to keep you wanting more, right? So
Mhm.
it's just solid storytelling, even though you want it. And then the only thing that happens is like once you get it, it might not be what you was hoping for.
Yeah. Or
That's the only
if you
thing.
don't get it.
Or you don't get it, you're like, ah, dang it. But I do like at least the bot. What's that droid's name?
AZ.
AZ. I did like AZ basically saying like, yeah, it's all mental, dude. It has nothing to do with your physical stuff, which pisses him off even more. And
Yep.
it's Omega basically, and that's why he swats AZ away and like all this other stuff. Because once he figures out that he was hoping it would be physical, so at least
Yeah.
he knows the diagnosis. Like, oh, it's nothing that I'm doing wrong. It's just my body, which still is another
Hmm.
mental thing you have to get through, mental trauma you have to get through. But the
It's like,
fact that
hey, you fix it, I'll be good.
right, you
Yeah.
fix it, I'll be good. At least we know that. But the fact that he knows that it has nothing to do with his physical situation, has everything to do with the trauma he's done with in the past and his PTSD, it really pisses him off.
That's why it took him so long to go to AZ. Because AZ's like, hey, I can check your hand. He's like, nah. Because I think he knows that it's mental. And he just
Hmm.
doesn't want it to be confirmed that it's mental until Mega's like, pretty please, can you
Hmm.
get your shit checked out? It turns out Siler Saris is hiding out on a swamp planet. They rent what is essentially the Star Wars equivalent of an airboat and come across some mines in the water that Hunter and Wrecker have to deactivate. While they're doing that, they get attacked by some gator looking creatures. Fennec tries to get more info from Hunter and Wrecker and guesses that Omega got away from them. True, but also not true anymore. But she doesn't need to know that. We get an interesting conversation where Wrecker calls her out and True replies, good guys, bad guys, their money's all the same. When they arrive to Siler's hideout, Fennec has Hunter and Wrecker check it out while she stays on the boat. Wrecker then again calling her out. It's like, oh, so you just chill, we do all the hard work, you get the reward. Okay, I see how it is. Um, Sadler tries to escape, but Fennec cuts the connections to the engines of his boat and they eventually defeat him.
Sylar is a really cool like character and how he wiggled around and like used the environment and like you can
Looks
understand
like a
why
praying
he's
mantis.
right, the praying mantis thing and everything. Like how you can understand why he was very hard to track down and do everything because he had a failsafe for a failsafe. He could combat against anyone. He was just a really cool thing. Really like the kind of the character development that we got from Finnick. It was kind of like this is what we thought kind of a character she was the whole time until she got humbled and became
Mm-hmm.
Boba Fett. Most assassins were in the Star Wars. Most assassins are anyway. It's just like this is my mission. You're paying me money. I don't need to know because I don't want to be connected to it.
Yeah.
And that's how most assassins are in
She's more
general.
bounty hunter than assassin, but
Right.
yes.
But I'm just saying, still, just bounty hunter, assassin, whatever. All they know is this person's paying. I don't need to know. I just need to know who I'm going to get.
Money is money.
Money is money because the last thing you need to do, and I mean, you have this with doctors. You see this in doctor shows. You see this in lawyer shows. It's just like the last thing you want to do is care,
Yeah.
right? Because once you get attached, then it becomes that whole thing, and that's so that again with her, it's just like she doesn't know who the bad guys, the good guys are. All she knows is that they pay, right?
Yes.
And so that was a really cool line because if there was no, it's not that she doesn't have any morals, it's that she just doesn't need to know anything, so she doesn't feel guilt of what she's doing. Number two, with that, you also saw of kind of carrying on with Hunter's recklessness and stuff like that is and when she was just like, oh, so we're supposed to just do everything and you do this, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, and they just started doing it because all they care about is protecting Omega, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what the consequences are. They're going to do what they need to do to protect Omega, even if they think this is BS on what Finnick is doing, and they know every single thing of following Finnick and doing all this stuff. They keep doing all the grunt work because all they care about is is helping Omega. So even though
Yeah.
it's some BS stuff that they're going through, they typically be like no and have a big argument. They don't care because they
Yeah.
know they want it. They want that information so bad to protect Omega that they'll do anything that they need to do to do that.
Fennec is showing that she's still a few steps ahead of all of them
Yeah.
because she makes it seem like she's just chilling on the boat when, like, no, she's doing stuff like engine Sylar's boat and like doing the extra work outside, being the lookout outside because she knows, like, oh, Sylar's gonna come out, I'm gonna be there. Wrecker's calling her out and kind of fairly calling her out, but then she's also a few steps ahead of him. Back on Pabu, we're getting to your favorite part here, Josh. Omega has an idea to fix Crosshair's hand, but he's going to have to trust her. And you get another cute moment between them two. Like, it's just all the cute moments, heartfelt moments where he goes, I'm not going to like it, am I? And she replies, you don't like anything.
No.
And I just cracked up at that. Her idea is meditating, which she learned from the Wookiee Gunji on Kashyyyk. And Crosshair's like, wait, you've been to Kashyyyk? And Omega's like, yeah, you've missed a lot, buddy. And Crosshair's sad face when he realizes just how much he has missed
Mm-hmm.
by being who he was in season 1 and season 2. That really tugged at my heartstrings.
Oh, this scene was awesome. It's just such good writing too, and you really
Mhm.
you're just breaking down all these, and we keep peeling back these layers. And the more layers you get, you realize how many of those layers he put up himself.
Mhm.
And until he realized how much he missed his family and everything that they've been doing when he said like, you know, you're stupid, you shouldn't do this, and he realizes he was the stupid one. He was the ignorant one at the beginning,
Mhm.
just because of the steadfast thing. And then he's sitting there meditating, which I thought was. But you saw that when he finally got that sad face, you realizes I made a mistake, and he thought
Mhm.
he was right the whole time. And the main thing that, especially with those headstrong people, is admitting that you're wrong. And you can
Yeah.
tell in that he wasn't saying it out loud, but in his facial expression, which is why I love this scene, he is admitting that he messed up,
Yeah.
just to himself. And then the meditation scene reminds me of Splinter and Raphael from the original one, where Raphael's just super, has no patience type of thing.
Yeah.
But you can tell but he's going along with it. He's
Yeah.
because he's at this point he's trusting Omega, on that, and so that's why this scene was just so freaking awesome.
I think he's also finally forgiving himself too,
Hmm.
because I think he knew that he was in the wrong
It's a good point.
by the end of him being on that planet, the snow planet that they go to in this season.
Snow Dune.
Yeah, Snow Dune, where he shoots the officer, and then just being on Tantus with Omega, and then just come everything that we've seen this season. I think he knew he was wrong, but he's finally like forgiving himself. And
Hmm.
Omega, just how gentle she was with him too, was that he had his hands in a fist like down, which is not the way to meditate,
Right.
and she literally like just grabs his hand, lifts it up, has him like be like that, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah. This
And
is
the
this.
fact too that he lets her too,
Hmm.
he's letting her do this because the Crosshair of season 1 and 2 would not let anyone touch him like that.
In season 3, he finally realizes what he was doing was wrong. And this is like him going from here and then him having his tremors and being vulnerable. And every time he would tell her to go away, she wouldn't. A lot of times, especially being in consolidation, all he wanted is human interaction. Same thing with Batcher. That one episode basically showed us that Omega, obviously 5 months worth, but you saw that her just caring for
Showing
Batcher,
love.
showing love and compassion to these two characters. Now you see Batcher being a puppy dog, and Omega, and a protective puppy dog, and Omega and Crosshair, letting his guard down and just enjoying the time that he has with her and going along
Mm.
with it.
At the very end of this episode, Fennec tells Hunter and Wrecker that she will get them the info after she delivers Sylar to her client. Hunter tells her that is not what they agreed upon, and she replies with, you can either fight me or trust me. Take your pick. And Hunter decides to trust her. Then, when she's leaving on her ship, she calls someone to say she did a job with some clones who were asking about the Empire's M count bounties. We get a garbled sound back, and Fennec replies with, "I'm sure you can track them down easily enough. I'll send you what I have."
As we saw, Fennec Shand is 5 steps ahead this whole episode. No, I don't trust her. The only time that I've ever said, like, oh, I like her is when she's loyal to Boba Fett, and that's just because she owns a life debt. Other than that, her whole existence in Star Wars has been out to just do what she needs to do to survive. So she's playing both sides at this point at the end of this episode. Is she still doing what she says? Is she just being to her word? But she's also making sure that she doesn't piss off the other side at the same time. She still wants to be kind of Switzerland at this point of not choosing a side and just still benefiting from both.
Maybe she's contacting someone who will be helpful to them, because when she was going after Omega, the person that I hired her was Nala Se. And Nala Se is someone who cares about Omega and cares about Omega's safety. The reason she doesn't take them up, which she kind of like alludes to a little bit in the episode when they had that conversation, is the only reason she's with you guys and not with me is because the person who hired me called it off. Because Nala Se thought that she'd be more protected with the Bad Batch than with her. I don't think it's Nala Se who she's talking to.
Gideon.
But I don't think, because Gideon's a bad guy, so, but then at the same time, I don't trust her at all. So it could also be someone that's going to not be very helpful to the Bad Batch.
She's freaking Littlefinger, playing both sides.
Any final thoughts on these 4 episodes and any expectations for what we will get next?
As far as what I hope to expect next, I hope we get the background of Crosshair and exactly what happened with the Assassins Project and all of that. I think we're going to get to the backstory of why the Tremors are happening, other than just going through all the battles and stuff like that, and the PTSD is going through that. And the other thing that I hope that we get is that she's talking to Moff Gideon, because I just want to be right from the first review that we did. A man can hope. And the other thing is, I am really hoping that we get that sunset of like Crosshair and all of them like standing on a cliff and just enjoying a meal together or something as a family. Like, I think that's probably gonna be like the last scene that we have. The last thing I want is, come on, Tech, you're not dead, buddy.
I would love for that to be the last scene, but these characters are not in Rebels. No. These characters are not in the original trilogy. I think they're going to die at the end of this, and it's gonna be very sad. I want to see if my theory of her low-key being Rey's grandmother is gonna be a thing.
You brought it up. We went through an hour and a half, and we almost got through it. And then you brought.
I mean, I don't want to be right, but I think I might be right.
Yeah, it was hurting me right now.
Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below, what you thought of these 4 episodes. If you want to yell at us for doing 4 episodes review, remember to like and subscribe. We are so close to 300 subscribers. That is Josh. I'm Sol, and we'll see you next time.